Hey everyone, Matt here with Reach Your Summit. After sharing a video with you on how I like to set up my hammock in the pouring rain, I've had a lot of you asking me the same question in regards to a tent. With through hiking, this is something that you'll definitely encounter quite a bit. I certainly have on the trails that I've through hiked, and it could be a game changer once you get everything dialed in. So I'm out here on a beautiful, balmy 33-degree Fahrenheit day in New England. And the precipitation has been fluctuating on and off between freezing rain and pouring rain. You can probably hear it now. It's back to freezing rain for a little bit. That good old New England weather. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I like to set up my tent when it's pouring out. I'll also pack everything up to show you the reverse process. In some of my through hikes, I've been out 14, 15 hours of pouring rain. And there's nothing more inviting and rewarding than getting out of those elements and getting into a nice warm sleeping bag, warm clothes on, and a nice dry shelter. Even when you're wearing waterproof clothing, eventually it's going to wet out. Nothing is truly 100% waterproof, especially if you're out in 14 hours of heavy precipitation throughout the day. So for this video, I have a single wall tent that I'm going to be setting up, and the tent uses trekking poles. If you're using a double wall tent or a freestanding tent, I'll put a link in the video description for this video below, showing you how I would set up a double wall tent, specifically the REI Quarter Dome SL2. When it's pouring out or there's precipitation, there are a lot of other double wall tents out there that have a similar function, but in this case I have my single wall tent. So what I like to do when I'm out hiking is first to get my poles set up before I get to my campsite. In this case, I have fixed length trekking poles. These are 120 centimeters. If I have adjustable poles, I'll make sure that they're adjusted to the height that I need to set up my tent before I get to my campsite. Next, after I have my poles set to the length that I need them, I'll pick my campsite. So this one is nice and relatively flat. It has low impact use, lots of pine needles and duff on the ground. So it's going to give me a little bit of insulation. It's also going to help keep from getting a lot of mud shooting up at me as if I were in a high impact campsite. So after I have that chosen, I'm going to get my tent out. If I'm leaving my campsite in the morning and I know it's going to be raining throughout the day, or if I'm planning a backpacking trip and I know it's going to be raining out when I get to my next campsite at night, I'm going to keep my tent in the very top of my pack. Inside of this pack I have a trash compactor bag, and that's going to line my pack and keep everything else dry when I'm opening my pack to get my tent out. This pack is made of Cuban fiber, so it is very water resistant. I have my tent right here. Now you want to do this as quick as possible. You don't want to be out in the pouring rain any longer than you already have for the day. All right, now that I have this set up, I want to get out of the elements. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna roll this up. Kind of helps that the rain has died down a little bit right now. So one thing I'll have inside of my pack always is a sit pad. This is the Thermarest Z-Lite sit pad. And I'll just rest that down under the vestibule of my tent. With that, I can put my wet footwear, my wet socks, my wet clothing. I can put all of that on top of the sit pad and let it dry a little bit at night. Keep it out of the exposure of the elements if it's still pouring out. Keep it off of the soaking wet ground. And it'll be easy for me to access in the morning when I get out of my tent. It'll also keep it out of my tent, help keep my tent dry inside. For now, I'm going to sit my pack in there. So then what I'll do is I'll get my rain jacket unzipped, ready to take it off, get inside of the tent. And then get that off. Because my pack is wet already, I can just shove that inside of my outer pocket for now. Or like I said, I can sit that on top of the Z-Lite sit pad. And with my vestibule fully closed, I'll start digging everything out of my pack. So my dry sleep clothes, got a synthetic jacket. Put my stove aside. Got my other clothes inside of this bag here. And my sleep pillow and my Thermarest NeoAir. Got my quilt, and I've got all of my other items inside of the other pockets and stuff sacks. Inside of this specific tent, I have a couple of clothesline hooks for hanging damp clothing or wet clothing and allowing it to dry, or I can tie a line across the top of the tent. I don't personally do that with this tent for a couple of reasons. If I tie a clothesline across one wall of the tent to the other, I lose a little bit of livable space to move around. The other reason I won't do it is because this is a single wall tent, so condensation is inevitable. You know, even if it's very minor, it's still going to happen a little bit, and I don't want to increase that by having damp clothing inside of my tent or wet clothing. So what I'll do is I'll leave it on top of that Z-Lite sit pad at night, as I mentioned. The other thing, when I'm through hiking or when I'm on a backpacking trip and rain is in the forecast, I'll always bring a separate set of sleep clothes and a separate pair of sleep socks. Those will always stay inside of my pack until I have this shelter set up and I'm inside of it and I'm ready to hunker down for the night. In the morning when I get up and I'm ready to hit the trail again, as tough as it is, I'll take that dry clothing off. Don't want to be getting your dry clothing wet and then being stuck with just carrying a ton of wet clothing and socks and having that all that you have at night. It's nice to get a warm night's sleep, and as much as it sucks to put the wet clothing back on, it does help a lot when you're out there. All right, so how do I pack all of this up in the morning after I wake up and I'm ready to go? I'll make sure that everything is packed up nicely inside of my tent before I put it back in the pack. That way I'm limiting any exposure of the gear to the elements outside. If you do get a little bit of rain on your down jacket or your down sleeping bag, it's not the end of the world. Don't get too worried about it. A lot of down products now do have the water repellent treatment to it. Putting it in a stuff sack will certainly help. One thing that's saved me multiple times on through hikes is taking advantage of drying time. So if you're out hiking during the day and it's been pouring out, say 4 or 5 hours, and then all of a sudden the sun comes out, no matter what my itinerary is for the day, I'll take advantage of that time. I'll stop, I'll have a snack, I'll take a break, and I'll let all of my stuff air out. Even if it's for 15, 20 minutes, that little bit can go a long way. So once I have all of my wet clothing on and all of my gear and everything is packed up, roll my compactor bag up. Alright, so once all of my gear is all packed up and it's inside of my pack again, a couple of things I can do. I'm going to show you how I'll set everything up with this specific pack. But if I did not have a pack with a roll top closure like this, what I can do is I can take my wet tent, put it inside of the stuff sack, and put it on top of the trash compactor bag. Or if I have room in my outer pockets, I can shove my tent in there. What I will do at least is put the rain fly outside of my pack in the outer pocket. But with this pack, I'm going to avoid that completely. So I'll take my Z-seat pad, I'll just shove it in the outer pocket. Then I'm going to break this down as quick as possible. The nice thing about this tent is it's Cuban fiber also like the pack, so it doesn't retain water. It will still get a little wet. This tent has a carbon fiber strut in the middle too, so I usually just grab hold of it there, shake it, try to roll it up the best I can. Then I'll get it back into the stuff sack. So this tent definitely still has some water on the outside of it. That's gonna happen with any type of shelter that you have when you're backpacking in the rain. For me personally, with this pack, I have a strap that goes around the top. So what I'll do, so I'll just tighten that strap down and keep it like that. That way it's not getting the inside of my pack wet. And if it does end up stopping with precipitation, I can lay this out and let it air dry a little bit and still keep all of my other stuff dry inside of the pack. So that's how I like to set up and break down my tent when it's pouring out and I'm on a thru hike or a backpacking trip. If you haven't taken a backpacking trip out in the rain, it's definitely a different experience. But don't let the bad weather deter you from getting out there and enjoying what we're all out here to enjoy. Embrace the suck, and the rewards will outweigh everything else. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any further questions on this or anything else in my other videos or anything gear related, please feel free to contact me in a comment below. Or you can also get in touch with me at reachyoursummit.net. If you like this video, hit the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, gear reviews, trips, everything else in between, hit the subscribe button. I'm always adding new content to this channel. As always, thank you for the support. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Here's to another decade of adventure. I'll see you on the trail.